Hey guys, it's me, Kisame Unlimited, and in this video I'm basically going to discuss the format into the case where it's either a slow format or fast format and how people are going about it, my feelings included. Because the last time when I made this video discussing the ban list, the TCG ban list, I was really like, I overly didn't like it. Still to this day I really don't like it, but when I made that video I was just talking about the changes instead of my personal feelings of of the little I liked and what I overly disliked and never went into real good detail. So because instead of just acknowledging all the comments of people saying, oh, Kisame, you're fucking retarded, I disagree with you, you don't make no sense, because for one, I didn't go into detail and explain my reasons of why I didn't like this list. So I decided, instead of just replying to a whole bunch of people and saying, you know what, I'm just going to explain it to each individual person, I'll just make a separate video discussing my personal feelings about why I'm not so thrilled of this format. If you guys agree with me, hooray. If you guys disagree with me, that's your own feelings. I mean, I know that every different person in this game, when a ban list comes around, there's always two sides of the same coin. We all play Yu-Gi-Oh!, but there's always the people that are happy with a new format and the people that just don't like this format. And I'm just one of those kind of people where I'm not so thrilled with this format because I could see the error in it. People could look at the good and the people could look at the bad, and I just see that there's more bad than good. But you know, if you have your own reasons for liking this list, that's your choice. I decided to map out everything from this format of what people liked and didn't like, and I'll give my excuses because I wrote down everything. One thing people loved about this format is the fact that everyone likes that it's a slower format. And I can appreciate it. Trust me, I can. I wanted the game to get slowed down for a while. The only difference that I don't think people really came to the realization is that almost every Tier 1 deck, including Tier 2 decks, got a halt. Not when it came down to staples in general, but each deck got a piece of it that was cut off. The only difference that I don't like that people are saying is just like, oh, now who knows what tops? And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that spell books just would... Because spell books were dangerous even before Judgment. And as for Dragon Rulers, they were also dangerous even before the baby Dragon Rulers came out. Fire Fists were dangerous before Rooster and Spirit, and Atlanteans were, you know, they have Lindy, Atis, and they still have Sphere. And you could say the same thing about, you know, Evil Swarms that didn't even get touched really. So what I'm trying to point out is that the factor that even though a lot of decks, because the thing is, right off the bat, I'm just trying to point out that even that those Tier 1 decks were hit in some which form, they were dangerous even before some of those things were, those extra supporting cards were released. So I just want to point out that just because that's been hit doesn't mean that that's no longer an issue. And if you don't think that that's an issue, you were wrong, and you will see in the next nationals and next regionals that you'll see that these decks aren't dead. They're not gone for good. Then is staples. People are saying that just because the staples are gone, the format will become slower. That is not true. Because in all honesty, all that's going to happen is the factor that we lost shit like Avarice, Heavy, and Monster Reborn. They're going to be, and like same thing goes for the traps, but all of them are going to get swapped out by different spells and traps. Like you see, people are going to start main decking more Lances, and people are going to be main decking more maybe Pod Dualities, and as for Avarice, you're just going to swap it out for Duplicity. It's just like, each day, there are lots of replacements for loss of staples. I mean, it hurt me hard. It hit me hard when the staples were hit, because they're iconic to me. I feel like when I saw this list, I was overly angry because I felt like maybe it shouldn't have been done all within one list. Because I feel like for people to just walk away and say, yeah, I'm glad they hit all the fucking staples. I feel like these were staples that every motherfucker played. Everyone played Monster Reborn, Dark Hole, Heavy. Those three were in every fucking deck, unless you played some kind of troll deck. They are iconic to the game. So, I mean, I understand that they were unstable. Trust me, I do. I'm glad Heavy's gone. But it's like at the same time, I am, to the point where I had my grieving period. Because I've said to myself, these were cards that I grew up with. I grew up with Heavy and Darkhold and Heavy. I know that Darkhold's still around. But I'm like, these cards I grew up with. So I feel like I was entitled to get angry. Because I feel like, I learned to live with it. Yeah, Monster Reborn's gone. Monster Reborn's gone. I replaced it with other things. So, the thing is, it was besides that, as for losing the loss of staples, and people saying just because the staples were hit, that makes the game slower, that's not true, because the real factor goes that what most people are going to end up doing is just replacing those staples for new staples. People are going to start putting Book of Moon back in, Lance back in, more Pot of Dualities, and the list goes on and on. You could add in a whole bunch of things. I could see people play Upstart Goblins for more consistency. What I'm trying to point out is that the staples will just get replaced by more staples. That doesn't make the game slower. That just means it's a change to what we originally used. Where it's just like, some things became iconic to us because we became so used to them because they had great effects, and they helped us in the form of the game we were in. So what's going to happen is we're just going to use different forms of staples and call them our new staples. That's exactly what's going to happen. Then the other thing is, what I don't like is, there were the tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. They kind of addressed all the tiers at once. They were like Tier 2 shit like Gravekeeper, Six Sams, Constellars, Rabbit Players, all got bumped. Every deck got bumped. And the thing that I don't like is because other people are not looking at it like this. I looked at it like people were saying, oh, if they hit all these decks, those decks will be topping. I don't believe that. And also, I find that to be very selfish, because I feel like all these decks had their time in the spotlight. I feel like, why don't you give them a chance? I felt like they were unnecessary. Each one, Gravekeepers, Six Sams, Constellars, Heroes, Rabbit Players, I feel like they were all punished without even giving the opportunity to top. If they were topped and they, then they deserved it. I wouldn't even say a word, but that they weren't in the meta and they weren't topping, and just saying that they deserve to get hit because they have one or two cards that gives them advantage. You could say that about a whole bunch of decks. You could say that about Heretics. You could say that about Evilswarms. You could say that about so many other decks in this game. And say like, oh, Frog Monarchs, they topped that one time and everything, and just like, might as well, why don't you just hit Swamp Frog? It's like, people don't want to come to the realization, but that is a true, honest fact. They punished decks that didn't deserve it because they didn't top. Bringing any argument to that makes no sense. You can't just say, oh, well, this... I feel like it's bad to judge a deck and just say, well, the deck has this. True, the deck has something. Each deck has like something good about them. Six Sams opening up with Gateway was their auto win. Offerings, Ultimate Offerings was that for gadgets. And so far and so forth, each deck had something. But they weren't topping. And even if they hit the most recent shit, and it gave them the opportunity to top, that's their own thing. But I think that why Konami did that was because Konami decided, let's nerf everything. Because if you consider nerfing everything, the Tier 1 shit still outclasses the Tier 2 shit, especially since the Tier 2 shit got hit. So it's basically like, oh, the Tier 1 stuff that was in our last format will still be the shit that will top in this format. And at the same time, bad enough as that might be, I believe the reason why they did it to Tier 2 shit was not because they were afraid of topping, was that because they wanted to promote shit from the new shit, from Shadow Specters and the Boojins and new decks. So I felt like they probably said, you know what, let's hit the Tier 2 shit so we can make sure that the new shit that we release gets promoted and it has no competition. Except maybe the Tier 1 shit that people could buy, like Prophecies. And I felt like that was kind of fucked up because that's like Konami only cares about this, the money aspect. And that's what aggravated me. That's what pissed me off because it's like, I play Rabbit. I play a deck with Rabbit. I think I've mentioned it before in these videos that I play a deck called Rabbit Aliens where I focused on two rabbits, one side on Gagigigo and the other side focused on Shock Trooper. And my deck was punished because of the only two Rabbit decks out there, which was Macro Rabbit and Dino Rabbit. Dino Rabbit has seen no play.